Welcome to another Sunday WOAY ABC4 Community Forum, where we talk to community leaders and local success stories to discuss important information that affects all of us here in Southern West Virginia. I'm your host, Brandy Lawrence, and today we're joined by another distinguished guest. Mark Lilly, who is the president of the Raleigh County Beekeepers Cooperative Association, joins us this morning. Thanks so much for coming back to the forum.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's always a good time learning about the bees.
Great.
And also the Beckley Honey Festival is coming up August 17th. I believe it's the 7th annual.
It is. This is our 7th year. The city of Beckley and Exhibition Mine has worked even harder this year to make it bigger.
Awesome, awesome. I know it'll be an even better time this year. I went last year. Guys, if it's something you've been thinking about doing, please make a plan to go out this year. We had so much fun.
Yeah, so it'll be from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday at the Exhibition Mine. And tons of things for people of all ages. I think some of the school-age kids can dissect actual honeybees with a science teacher as part of it. And then there'll be some informative talks. The live hive demonstration's always pretty popular.
Definitely. I got to participate in that myself last year, which was really fun. And no, you do not go in with equipment or any supplies. You just go right in, and the bees are very nice. And as long as you're kind to them, they will be kind to you.
Yeah, so that's one of the goals there, is just to get people used to it. So it's screened in, right? And they can get as close to it as they'd like. We'll hold up a frame of bees for them to inspect from a distance and then see how comfortable they get.
Awesome. Well, it was definitely a great time, and I think it's a really awesome way to get people more comfortable with bees. I know some people are scared of them. So.
Well, and I think, just it's education, no matter if it's about honeybees or other pollinators. It opens the conversation for us to discuss things that we don't think about most of the time.
Absolutely. So, for people out there that may be afraid of bees, or they, may just have that fear in them, what do you recommend for them, and what would you say?
Well, first off, not all bees are friendly, right? So if you don't know what the bee is, distance is your friend, right? But you never run and never swat. Right? At the point you swat at an insect that's flying, they see that as aggressive and they respond. So if you're in a bad situation, maybe just get up and walk away slowly.
Absolutely. Always walk away.
Yeah.
So, and we were talking before we started the show, you said you've been getting some feedback and some commentary about increased yellow jacket activity in the area.
Yeah, we've had a lot of extra calls, and we've noticed it ourselves. Not really sure why this year. Maybe it was because spring didn't have that final big freezer frost, so it had like the ideal spring weather, and that gave them an extra 3 weeks or so for the numbers to multiply. So we've been getting a lot of complaints about yellow jackets.
Yeah. And you are telling me that you have a solution for this, a really easy one.
Yeah, it's cheap and effective. So we take like a gallon container. It could be a milk jug, a 2-liter bottle, a gallon that water comes in from whatever store you purchase it from. We take 1 cup of vinegar, 1 cup of sugar, mix that together and pour it in the bottom. And then around the top, above the liquid level, we'll make 4 X's with a knife, each of the X's, each of the slits about 1 inch long, and then push it in with your finger and work it so it doesn't close back up. And then if you could take a piece of poultry, chicken lunch meat, turkey lunch meat, wrap thread around it and drop it down through the hole just above the liquid level, and then screw the cap on to hold it on. Set it in your backyard, preferably off the ground, on your woodshed, overturned bucket. It will attract yellow jackets, European hornets, wasps, but it won't attract honeybees. The others also eat meat, and so that's the reason we put meat in there.
It's really interesting. They say you catch bees with honey, but you catch yellow jackets and hornets and wasps with deli meat.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. So, and it works as good as the stuff you buy in the stores, not knocking that, but a lot of folks are trying to save money, and most of that you have at home already.
And you could probably do multiple traps, wherever you...
Yeah, you wouldn't need many. I mean, 2 I think would be a lot. Maybe 1 behind your house and 1 in the front of your house. Obviously, you wouldn't want to set that on the picnic table.
Definitely.
Probably 15 or 20 feet away from where you are routinely every day. And then check it. You'll be surprised how quickly it fills up.
That's really great advice.
Yeah.
So we know how to get rid of the ones that we don't want around, but how do we, can the community help out with keeping our pollinators safe?
Well, I think the biggest thing is maybe education, and that's what the Raleigh County beekeepers try to do, and that's part of the Honey Festival. It's one of the driving forces of the Honey Festival, is just to educate everybody about how important pollinators really are, because a lot of folks don't realize how our food supply depends on that. Anything that you have more knowledge of, you're less afraid of. So education, not everyone's going to be a beekeeper or wants to be a beekeeper, but some of the things that is beneficial for us as beekeepers is if they're using pesticides and fungicides, try to do it as late in the day as possible, preferably around dusk, and follow the label. Over-mixing any of those can be detrimental, not only to honeybees, butterflies, other pollinators. So follow the label and use it as sparingly as you need to.
And as you mentioned, you said maybe not everybody wants to be beekeepers, but if anybody out there was watching and they would potentially be interested in being a beekeeper, what would be the process for that?
Well, first, they could come to any of our meetings. We have a meeting on the 3rd Thursday of every month at the Raleigh County Board of Education office on Adair Street at 6 o'clock. Public's invited, even if you don't want to be a beekeeper and just learn more about it. But you could talk to other beekeepers in the area, and we talk about beginners classes and other information. There's also other bee organizations around. Fayette County has a beekeepers group, Greenbrier County, McDowell County, Mercer County. There's a lot more beekeepers groups than a lot of people know.
Yeah, I really didn't know that there were so many either. And I was just finding out that the honeybee is West Virginia state insect as well. So.
Absolutely, yes. That's our pollinator insect. We got that legislation passed about 4 years ago.
So, I mean, that's really awesome to know that, and to see that, there are so many beekeepers in the area that are not only like working to protect the pollinators and keep our food supply and things safe, but also just, protecting our state insect as well.
Exactly, yeah. And we enjoy getting out to the schools, right? So if there's any educators that would like beekeepers, there's multiple beekeepers that go into the schools and do short lessons from preschool up through high school.
I think that'd be awesome too, and you start early, so now
Absolutely.
All the kids know they can go outside and they won't have to hurt the bees, and they know how to safely get yellow jackets and hornets and everything away. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, it is. I think that's something the community can take advantage of, is educational opportunities.
Definitely. And you said the beekeeping meetings are at 6 p.m.?
6 p.m. every 3rd Thursday.
Every 3rd Thursday.
At the Raleigh County Board of Education office.
Awesome. Well, that's definitely something to get into, something to consider, to educate yourself even further, and potentially even get a new hobby that is helping, the community and the world, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. A couple of the samples that I brought here today, there's a huge color difference in those from the same hive, different times of the year. So when we go to the big box stores and buy honey, they go to great lengths to make it all look the same, but then it always tastes the same. And those two samples taste entirely different. There'll be a tasting bar at the festival, so you'll be able to taste however many honey vendors are there. You can sample each of theirs, vote for whichever one you think is the best, and then purchase if you want to.
Yes, that was another awesome event that was at the Honey Festival last year, and we tried so many different kinds, and they taste so different.
They
Just
do.
like you said, the big box stores, you get all the same honey, but trying all those different honeys, they were so different. I tasted one that tastes like apples, like.
Yeah, there's a lot of different, and from year to year it varies. This is the first year that locally anyone was able to extract silverberry, and I was shocked at how good it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to give that a shot.
Yeah,
But I mean,
absolutely.
everything was delicious, and I can't wait to try those either. So,
Yeah, so I think one of those is Wildflower, the darker one, so we'd call that amber colored, and the really light one is silverberry.
so yeah, we'll definitely have to try that out, and I'm sure it's awesome. But you all also make sure to get to the Beckley Honey Festival and make sure to try out these honeys. They're awesome. Whatever you want to drink them in, drink or eat them in. I usually use them for my tea. But and I've also heard of a lot of medicinal properties with local fresh honey.
And apparently a lot of the doctors in the area are suggesting people with allergies eat local honey, because we've been getting calls from people that said, is your honey local? My doctor's recommending it. Even had a person purchase some for their pet that had allergy problems.
Oh, you never really think about it, but since it is, natural and it is local, it's got to be safe for the pets as well. So
Yes, absolutely.
wonderful. How did you get interested in beekeeping personally?
Well, I think I've had a fascination with it just growing up as a child. My grandfather on his farm had several hives. Some of those was maintained by a relative of his. And just the noise, the buzzing. Of course, it's always beautiful weather when the bees are out. You're outside as a kid playing, and you're inquisitive about it. And I think from there, just as I got older, exposed to several people in the community that were beekeepers. Mr. Walls was one, a local icon in the beekeeping company, I guess if you call it that. Barney Walls interested me years ago, and then I did it as a hobby, just kind of something to have to blow off steam after a hard day at work. And it has turned into a full-time job. I mean, the perfect job is when you go to work at your hobby every day.
Absolutely. And I can imagine this is a really great one. You get to do something that's really wonderful for the community, the global community, but also something that you really enjoy.
Yeah, it is. And just the fact that you're always learning, I think that attracts me a lot. You never get to the point where you know it all. There's always something new that each season, maybe a hive or a floral source will surprise you with. And it's like really neat that you can experience that, share it with your friends.
It's great to know. And hopefully we could, motivate some more people out to come out and, if not become beekeepers, at least learn more about bees. So we are about to go on to our first break, but before we go, do you mind plugging some contact information so they know how to get in touch with the beekeeping cooperative?
Yeah, so RaleighCountyBeekeepers.com is our website. We post a lot of our information there. If you go there, I think my phone number shows up, and I'm more than happy to answer questions from anybody. And my wife says you shouldn't give out your phone number, but she also knows I've done it so much it doesn't matter. So if anybody wanted to call me about bees, it's 304-860-9638. Anytime between, the only time I don't answer the phone is from 11 to 6 a.m. Other than that, I'll answer the phone.
All right, sounds great. Oh, and you can also come see him at the Beckley Honey Festival on August 17th. But we will be right back after the break, and we'll be talking more about the Beckley Honey Festival and beekeeping and local bees in general. Welcome back to Sunday's Community Forum. I am here with President Mark Lilly of the Raleigh County Beekeeping Cooperative Association, and we're talking about the Beckley Honey Festival and all things beekeeping. So you brought us two different honeys today, and I know me personally, and I'm sure some people at home are interested in how honey is harvested and how it can turn out these two different ways.
Yeah, so to get varietal honey, that's what we would call it, where we can identify the main nectar source. There's always some additionals in there, but the main nectar source, you put the box on that they put the honey in right before that species blooms. And then as soon as it finishes blooming, you pull that box off. So what you've captured is the lighter colored silverberry or autumn olive, whatever you'd prefer to call it. The darker is wildflower, and that's where you just let it all mix together. So you don't pull it off incrementally with each bloom. You just let them continue to harvest it, and late summer pull it. But here in West Virginia in general, the entire state, our major honey sources are from trees. So it starts early in the spring. Probably the first big flow is that lighter color silverberry. Most years you don't collect a crop off of that because there's a late frost or freeze. Didn't happen this year, so we were fortunate to get that. Then we go into the locust honey, which is also a very light color. Tulip poplar, which is a reddish amber. Then basswood, late May through June, and then depending on the year, this has been a little unusual year, everything seemed to have bloomed early. Sourwood, which is known in Appalachia as the crop, right? That's the money maker. That normally blooms early to mid-July into early August. This year it was probably 2.5 weeks early, and the drought kind of affected it. We didn't get quite as much. But each of those has a different, distinct taste. And a lot of folks are shocked at the difference, the fact that that same hive with those same bees, if you give them a box and take it away during one bloom cycle, can produce that contrasted difference in honey.
And they're the same type of bees, or are they different kind of bees?
No, these are European honeybees, so it's Apis mellifera. That's the worldwide, I guess, commercial honeybee. It's acclimated to every continent. So that's the ones that's the workhorse that does a lot of the agricultural pollination. Of course, we have local pollinators, native pollinators, bumblebees and butterflies and ants and different things like that, but they don't produce an excess crop of anything.
Interesting, super interesting. And I'm glad that you sort of brought up the drought as well, because we're currently, going through a big one. I know a lot of people are being impacted adversely. And how has that been for the beekeepers as of late?
Well, the spring was great, but by the time we had gotten to late June and we're just experiencing the beginning of the drought, I guess, for our lawns and stuff, we were already seeing it in the bee world because the bees regulate the population size of their hive according to the amount of food that comes in the door. And we saw them starting to cut back populations by late June into July, and it's been a big concern, and we've kind of sounded the alarm at all the local bee clubs. They call it a dearth when there's nothing for them to forage on, and we've been in the dearth already for at least 2 weeks or more. Typically that wouldn't start for another week or two. So beekeepers are going to have to be very diligent. We think when we see them flying in and out of the hive, everything's great. We've noticed in the past 2 weeks, as we get in and inspect them, a reduction in the amount of pollen that's being stored and nectar. And pollen's what they use to feed the babies. So when they're raising brood, they're feeding pollen. And although they're bringing pollen in, it's not in the volume that they would need, so we're actually supplementing that right now.
It's really interesting. And even how you mentioned like how they kind of reduce populations and things like that. If they have to, turn some bees away and things like that, where do those bees usually end up going? Do they find another hive or?
Well, they don't necessarily turn bees away. So the queen can lay this time of year about 1,000 eggs a day. If they don't see enough food coming in, then they somewhat control how many eggs she lays by not feeding her as much. And so then they cut their population back and adjust it to what's coming in. Interesting thing about bees, there could be 6 or 7 boxes of honey stored on that hive, but they regulate the size or the population based on the food coming in right now, not on what they already have in store.
Super interesting. That's why I love bees so much. It's like you can always learn something new about how their colonies work, and it's very structured. Like they very much have a system.
Yeah, there's definitely the division of labor, and it's based on the age of the bees. And as busy as a bee, right?
Yeah, definitely as busy as a bee. So how do you, what are a beekeeper's daily responsibilities? Like what do you have to do to keep that up?
Well, it's not a lot, especially if you're a hobbyist with just a couple in your backyard. You're spending maybe an hour or two a week checking on them. The biggest concern is disease. You want to try to prevent it, and then if you have to deal with it, deal with it. But when things slow down food-wise, you have to supplement their food. Now, we've already taken the honey off that we're taking this year. So we can give them some sugar water if we need to now, because we won't adulterate the honey. So we're watching their food stores. Have to kind of take precautions against bear. They're pretty prevalent in southern West Virginia and are a problem for a lot of beekeepers. And then just the actual act of removing the honey. So this box will hold, it weighs about 60 pounds, has about 30-ish pounds of honey in it. So we take each of those frames out and remove the top of the wax capping off of it in a machine, and then put it into an extractor. So if you'd want to think of it as a centrifuge that spins around really fast. And it slings that honey out against the wall of the machine, collects in the bottom, and of course there's a drain there that we can drain the honey out of. And then we put those same frames back on the hive. They recycle them and just continue to refill them. Right? They don't waste any of it. We don't throw anything away that comes out of the hive.
Wonderful. So you're recycling everything.
Absolutely.
That's great. And I'm sure, beekeeping is probably more optimal in the spring and summer months, but what do you all usually do during the fall and the winter?
Well, in the fall, again, we're checking for disease and pest management, and we have to make sure there's enough weight, so enough food stored, even if it's nectar made from sugar syrup, to get them through the winter. That's pretty well wrapped up by late October, and then from there till about the end of the next February, every 10 days to 2 weeks, you're just kind of cracking the lid to see, are they okay? Are they running out of food? And if they are, supplement it with some emergency sugar cakes.
So I know you noticed, you mentioned different ways to feed bees. We got sugar cakes, and then we have the sugar water.
Yep.
Does this make a difference in the honey that's produced, the things that they eat?
No. Of course, obviously, the nectar that they collect off plants is what makes that. Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to feed that syrup while you have the supers on to collect honey, because then you're just basically collecting sugar water. So we never feed when the supers are on, only in the fall when we're trying to get their weight built up. We let them keep any of the goldenrod flow that comes in, or any of the knotweed. There's some other fall plants, ironweed and Joe Pye weed and stuff that they get benefit from, but we leave it. Although you could harvest it, we want them to have as much of their product as we can to get them through winter. And then we just add to it to make sure that they make it.
And keeping up with the bees' weight, do you weigh like the entire box, or
You could. There's different methods. Some people will tilt it backwards and use like a luggage scale and weigh, if one edge of the box is the fulcrum, try to gauge the weight off of that. We've found with experience that one of those honey supers full, and what they have in the brood chamber is normally enough. So if we can check in the fall, take our hive tool and stick in the edge of each frame and see if we pull honey out, and then gauge it on that.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. We got to get to some of these meetings, guys. I'm learning so much more about bees just right now, and you learn a lot just by trying to read and things. But I think talking to somebody who actually does it is really. It's really more in depth, and you get to learn a lot more. It's really
well, you can ask questions, right? We invite anybody to come out and ask questions. That's how you learn, and we enjoy that. Again, we'd encourage any educators that want to get involved as well. Raleigh County Schools will be there at the Honey Festival with a booth about education, because education obviously goes beyond bees. But Raleigh County Board of Education has been very supportive in the Raleigh County Beekeepers organization and supporting us with facilities and places to meet and just other assistance that they can provide.
That's awesome. Well, shout out to Raleigh County Schools and their dedication to educating the public and the children about our pollinators. So thank you so much, for coming back to the forum today. And one more time before the people, just so they know how to get in touch with you all, do you mind plugging the contact information? Yeah,
so RaleighCountyBeekeepers.com is the website. Saturday the 17th from 10 to 4 at the Exhibition Mine, which is at 513 Ewart Avenue, will be the Honey Festival. We have about 12 plus vendors, everything from desserts to art, crafts, face painting. The Long Point String Band will provide live music again this year. They'll make fudge inside the Exhibition Mine shop. So something for everybody to do, and if anybody is bored and wants to call me, you can always do that. 304-860-9638.
Awesome.